Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, so I submitted 3 builds to Lego Ideas this past week. The Palace of Culture and Science in Warsaw, Taipei 101, and now the Twin Towers. And I hope to do a few more. But beneath the surface of all that, there's something I'm really disappointed in at myself with. And it's probably easiest to talk about this throughout the history of my life rather than just start 2 weeks ago. So, way back in 2011, Obama was president, and my grandfather had just passed away. My grandfather on my father's side had just passed away. And I was sitting at home I was working on my PhD in Rochester, New York, sitting at home when I got the news. My grandfather lived in Taiwan. I was just about to graduate with my PhD, and to help take my mind off of my grandfather, I started what seemed to be a brand new shiny hobby at the time. I was writing an AI for the game of Othello, and I never dreamed I would write any other AI. Othello was one of my favorite games. It's an 8x8 board game, and I never dreamed I would write an AI for anything else. I had written the Othello program as a very basic one as a class project for an AI course that I took at Rochester Institute of Technology. I dug it out and I significantly improved it. And before long, I started reading about other people who have written AIs for Othello, and one of the top ones at the time was an AI by the name of Zebra. And I eventually contacted him, and we had a discussion about it. And before long, I was competing at the Computer Olympiad. My first one was in Yokohama, in Japan. And unfortunately, what started out as a shiny new hobby at the time quickly consumed me. And I ruined several relationships over it. My most notable one was in 2016. I was dating a girl several years my junior. She was still living with her parents. One day I was really late showing up to her home, and she accused me of cheating on her because I was so hung up writing some computer games. And okay, actually, that segues right into my next hobby that I burned myself out at. I stormed out of my girlfriend and her parents' home because she was upset at me cheating on them. And I was so lost and confused. I drove 2 hours away to Ellensburg, Washington. I was lost, confused, wanted to take my mind off of what was going on. By the time I got to Ellensburg, it was 11, 12 o'clock at night. The stars were out. It's a very dark city. I had such a good time viewing. This was in 2016. Jupiter and Saturn were still a good distance from one another, but they were getting closer. The Milky Way was out, and I had a really good time viewing it. And I quickly found the new love of my life, the night sky, especially in a dark city like Ellensburg. I went to Ellensburg for several lunar eclipses. I went there for the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in 2020. I went there for several other celestial events. Actually, Ellensburg, in my mind, is synonymous with stargazing, right? I hardly went there for anything else. And I quickly got myself consumed with that. I would be constantly checking the weather forecast in Ellensburg, constantly worried about if I would have the time to go there, constantly worried about scheduling and all that. One time I got to Ellensburg, I got into a huge altercation with a gas station attendant. What had happened was I pulled up to the gas station, and I noticed he had just lowered the price of gas. Like, great. And I go in to pump gas, and I realized after I had finished pumping, he didn't lower it on the pump yet. And I was upset. I ran into the store, and the person I interacted with probably doesn't have authority to refund me the difference, right? But the next thing he said really upset me. He said he could give me a soda. It's been 15 years since I last drank soda. I don't want that shit in my body. And that's what caused me to blow up at him. It probably wasn't the gas or the fact that he said soda that caused me. It was probably more the sleep deprivation of having been up a day and a half viewing whatever event I was viewing. You see, all of my hobbies start beautifully, and then they quickly morph into something that consumes my life. Now, the games took a number of years to morph like that. The stargazing took at least 1 or 2 years. 3 years ago, I was working at a tutoring center teaching AP chemistry when I accidentally discovered about the properties of a metal called bismuth, and I got really excited about that. And once again, it was a shiny new hobby, and then I started working with it. I went to my first art show. When I went to my first art show, it was still a beautiful hobby. I discovered the bismuth in August of 2022. I would say by the end of that year, by the new year, it was already starting to morph into a burden. At least that one was bringing in me some side income for me, but it started to become a burden. The Legos, forget about it. Within a week, it was already a burden. It's getting shorter and shorter. What used to take years now takes me 2 weeks. The games took 5 years to become a burden. The stargazing, a year and a half. Bismuth took like half a year. Legos, 2 weeks. And I don't know why. And I have a very addictive personality, is what it is. And that's what makes me really worry about someday. I have a big fear that I'm going to get hurt and need painkillers and get addicted. I lost several classmates to painkiller addiction. I know if I take one painkiller, that's probably the beginning of the end for me. So I'm just trying to be extremely careful with my life. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.